Evening, everybody. I'm hoping there are some everybody's here, and apparently there are. Hello, Trish. Oh, Robin, sneaking in. It's difficult to sneak online, isn't it? Because you have to announce it the same as everyone else. But okay, I'll take that. That's fine. Oh, Rachel's here. Hello, Rachel. And AuthorTube with Andrew Chapman. Nice to see you. Blimey, everyone's lurking. Hello, Sage. Nice to see you too. And yes, you've already been seen. Okay. Hello, Paul. So yeah, nice to see everyone. It's Friday, apparently. I don't know. This seems to be how this works. And you know, nothing new to see here. So news. What news from the world of the writing man with the gloves drying on the radiator behind? Well, it's been cold. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's been extremely cold, in fact, and so that means sledging from certain children and certain middle-aged men, freezing bits of them off that they were hoping to use again one day. I can get rid of that now. You've seen it. Very, very cold, and that means the writing gloves come out. And I know our guest tonight also is a man who's not scared to use the accoutrements of fashion in his writing process when it's very cold. I've been wearing more than one jumper, which is not like me. And I also have a ridiculous hat. I might have to have a competition with Mark in a minute about that. I think mine's just about as bad as his. That's a lovely turn of phrase from Sage there. Hotter than Beelzebub's bumhole. Alliteration, that's been the order of the day, actually. Excellent. So just a very, very quick rundown on the old writing news. First of all, I don't know if they're here yet, Doug and Sam. Yes, oh, hang on, there you go. I had a lovely email just before I was getting ready for tonight from Doug and Sam pointing out some formatting errors in Clockwork Sherlock. No idea how they got through, but thank you so much for pointing them out. So there will be, I'm going to upload after we finish here tonight. I will revisit and make sure that everything's as it should be. I'll re-upload the book. And so if you already have a copy of Clockwork Sherlock, I mean, if you don't, why not? Then please just go and if you go into your Kindle library or Amazon orders, into orders and devices, you'll see that some Kindle books will say update available. And if Clockwork Sherlock says that, then update it and it'll get rid of the problems. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how it happened. Right, just quick few more hellos. Hello, Liz. Hello, Lee. And Doug here as well. And that snowy pick, that was just up the road on the avenue. And yes, Albie, he does like the snow, but yeah, absolutely. I spend 20 minutes after getting back pulling out tiny little balls of ice. Oh, he heard his name. Hang on. Albs, no, not yet, not yet. I know it's Friday, but you have to make them wait, otherwise they'll go, even if Mark stays on. And speaking of Mark Stay, so we have a guest tonight, which is lovely. And Mark was one of the first people when I first started doing this, and I thought, I know what you have to do on a live stream. You need to have other people involved to stop everybody getting bored. And he very kindly came on, as did a few other people, and it was good fun. So it's time to have him back again. I obviously didn't heed my own advice and carried on without having any guests and just waffling away. But actually, it's much better if we do have someone else. So I'm going to bring him in. So Mark is his latest book. I'm going to make sure that angle's good. I mean, look at that lovely cover. The Crow Folk is the first in the Witches of Woodville series. I have been lucky enough to read an early draft of the second one, which I love. We'll talk about that a little bit because we're going to talk about alpha readers. If you don't already own this fabulous book, then you should run out and get it. Obviously not to a bookshop because they're all closed. So go online, use an independent because they're available there, or I think it's on Amazon as well. I'm sure Mark will tell me if I got that wrong. And there's plenty more to talk about. So let's bring in Mark Stay. And I'm just looking down into the green room now, and he's prepared.
Oh, good evening, comrade. Oh,
there you go.
I'm fine, thanks. It's good to see you. That's how I imagine you whenever you're writing. Have you got gloves on as well?
No gloves. No, you recommended me those fingerless gloves, didn't you? They're a special brand.
Yeah.
What's the brand again?
These it's got them written on them somewhere. Of course, not on this one. It must be on this one. Heat holders.
I'm going to write that down.
Heat holders, and they are nice and thick, and they give a little bit after. I've got big hands, and at first I thought I'm not going to be able to use these, but actually after a little while they do give a bit. So, Mark Stay. I've noticed something from the bestseller experiment as well, which I didn't mention in that little intro because we're going to talk, maybe not talk so much about the bestseller experiment, which you probably must be bored of talking about by now.
No, I love it. I love it. I love talking about it. I am. It's one of my greatest achievements, which is it marked a big turning point in my career, I think, and. Yeah, it was. I can talk about it all you want. I was interviewing an author just today. I love talking to authors. That's why I still do it. It's you always learn something new. So yeah. Whatever you want to talk about. Thank you for. Well, I invited myself on the show, so thank you for letting me invite myself back. It's right.
I'm glad you did. As soon as you did it, I went yes. Absolutely. Yeah, it's. I'm actually having a little mini binge on the Bestseller Experiment podcast at the moment because I have fallen behind. So I'm trying to catch. Sorry.
Say 3 Hail Devos and see me in the morning.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But I'm getting there. But it's nice because I get to hear some of the things I already know that have happened.
Right.
And then they're all stashed together in this. Compressed into these little bursts of podcasts that I get in the mornings.
I heard someone say that the closest anyone feels like being a ghost in a house is listening to podcasts. And when people are talking about something and you want to say to them, no, it was that film, or it was this song, or it was that hasn't happened. No, that's what it's like being a ghost sometimes, listening to podcasts, 2 people chatting away and you're going, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Or even weirder, and if you're a regular listener to the Bestseller Experiment podcast, and if you contribute at all on the Facebook page, every so often you'll be walking your dog and trudging through the slush, and suddenly your name will get mentioned, which is a really bizarre experience. And it has actually happened to me as I've been picking up dog poo. Which it's a lovely juxtaposition. It's just the ego and the humility that you need to be a writer. It's all encapsulated in this one moment when I had this bag on my hand and I was just scooping up this poo. And they said, and Ian W. Sainsbury said, it's got this new book coming out. So that's a great. I mean, I think we're preaching to the choir here, but for any future watchers of this live stream. If you haven't come across the Bestseller Experiment, then just tap that into Google or the search engine of your choice, and you'll find everything you need to know. One of the lovely things before we move on to writing in the last couple of years was this 200 words a day idea, which I didn't exactly poo-poo it when it first started, but I just thought, well, that's not for me. I'm a professional writer.
Proper writer.
I think you'll find I have a shelf full of my own books behind me here. I know what I'm doing. But during the last lockdown, or was it the one before that? I can't remember. They blur into each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I came to a bit of a stop for a few weeks, and that idea of just writing 200 words a day, the tiny habit idea, I thought. After a few weeks, I thought I really need to try and get back into this. And I'll tell you what, I'll just do that. I'll just write the 200 words a day, just to get everything warmed up again. And 200 words maybe the first day, then maybe 500 the second, and 800 the third, and a few days at that kind of level. And then it just within a week, I was back at my normal rate.
Same thing happened to me. I was, at first lockdown as well. All the wind went out of my sails, and I had a novel to write. Not this one, but the one after it. And I just decided, okay, let's give it a go. Just 200 words, and I did it. And wrote 4 short stories, lickety split, and then started on the novel. I had my momentum going again. So, and we're hearing it from all sorts of authors, and it is very much about creating a habit, just showing up, turning up, doing the absolute minimum, and then moving on. And funnily, the author I was interviewing today, she was saying exactly the same thing. She's a solicitor, and she's incredibly busy, and she's teaching and mentoring and stuff like that. And she said the same thing. Just a couple of 100 words a day, and it snowballs. You just get into that habit. So it has been good.
Yeah.
It's helped a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a great idea to apply it to writing. I think it works really well for that. And of course, the idea that you can dictate into your phone and get your 200 words done while you're not in a queue these days, because you don't queue, obviously. Not really, but out on for your prescribed exercise period.
Yeah.
There's you in your Russian hat, and we're talking about prescribed exercise periods. What has happened to this country? But it does really work. And the other thing you said about short stories, I love short stories, but I've never really written them. But I just have, because I had to write one for an anthology, because I said I would, and then you find that people remind you that you promised you would, and then you actually have to do it. I loved it. It was great, just having something different. And I knew, even as I was starting it, that this was going to finish much more quickly. Do you find that changes your mindset when you? Yeah,
I've always it's a question I asked a lot of people on the podcast and never got a really good enough answer. I remember asking Joe Abercrombie, what's the key to a good short story? Because he just released a collection of short stories, and he just gave a sort of flippant, well, short stories are really short and novels are really long. It's like, thanks, Joe. That's really, really helpful. Mm-hmm. But there is that kind of essentially, you have one short strand, unity of story, one character, something they need to do, a series of events, and boom, it's done. And I've really enjoyed that. And I've, funny enough, the 4 short stories, I've written a quartet of stories, which are going to sort of sit between The Crowfolk and the second book in the series. And I'm going to release them on my newsletter. And I've got an editor working on them at the moment. And I'm really, really happy with them. Really. Well, actually, the third one, almost a complete page 1 rewrite. But apart from that, but then it's only 5,000 words, so it's kind of, it's all part of the fun and game. So that's all cool. So I'm enjoying that. I'm going to do a lot more of them, because with the Woodville books, I want to build a community, a little universe that people can come to, and it lends itself to lots of little side adventures and side stories and little events. And I've been asked to do one for an anthology as well, and I thought, great, this is great, because previously I would have really struggled to think of what to write, but now I'm thinking, brilliant, I've got this village, I've got this place I can go to, I've got a population of people there, I've got all these strange monsters in the woods and whatever. Let's have some fun. What can we do? So I love it, absolutely love it.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said for creating like you said, this whole universe that you can pop in short stories, novels, novellas, whatever. And now with the media being the way it is, social media, you can have websites, you could have Facebook groups. You can, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can. Of course, Queeve McDonald is doing something similar with the Stranger Times, where there's a whole little universe around that, and with his bunny books as well. Makes lots of sense. I've got it. I haven't sort of pursued it yet, but with the Bedlam Boy books, there's a possibly the same kind of potential there, because I've got a 20-year, there's a 7-year period in his life, which I very carefully left completely unexplored in the first books, which means I've got this opportunity, instead of being in the same, like you've got the village and wartime and lots you can do there. Mine is over a period of time. It's not the location. It's a 7-year period, but it's the same thing.
Can I tell the viewers what I'm reading at the moment? Can I?
Yes, that would be a nice segue, wouldn't it? Go on.
I'm reading the latest Bedlam Boy adventures, and they're very, very good. Have you mentioned the new location for or is that secret? I
think I've talked about. No, it's
All I'm going to say is it's gone widescreen. It's in 70 mil now. It's fantastic. I'm loving it. Really, really enjoying it.
Well, I mean, what you're reading at the moment is books 7, 8, and 9, which go back to about 3.5 years before the opening of Bedlam Boy 1, of course. That's George Lucas influence there, isn't it? But I'm now back 4, 5, and 6, which carries straight on from 3.
Right.
But will take him a bit more international as well, actually. So it's good. It's nice to have something where you realise there's lots of directions you can go in, and
I think it's one of those things. I mean, the biggest lesson I've learned on the podcast, I think, is to write a series or create a universe of your own, because people will keep coming back for more. And it's something I'd always struggle. I'd always thought, can I create somewhere that I won't get bored of, that I, because in TV as well, they talk about the endless well where you can keep going back for to the well for stories. And I think I found it with this one. So yeah, it was, I loved writing standalones. I love having a one and done and walking away from it. But and that will continue, I think. But I think Woodville is very much my happy place.
Yeah, and I think it really comes across. Like I said, I've read an early draft of the second one, and I love the first one.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's a great read. I think I love the second one even more, and that's like a bit unusual for me. With a series, and probably as a lot of people's experience, that you because that first book is the one that got you into the world. Yeah. That it always holds a special place in your heart. Whereas I felt like, oh gosh, I could see the potential for other places you could go, and the fun that could be had in that second one, even more than the first. I think the first grabbed me, and the second one sort of locked me in. That's it. I'm hooked.
Cool. Brilliant.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's coming in October. I know that because it suddenly turned up on my Amazon author page yesterday. And I was like, it is. October 27th. I better put that in my diary. So
it's funny the way we find these things out sometimes, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I know how, having worked at various publishers, I know how it works. They have these data management systems that as soon as you put the details in and press enter, it just farts it out all over the internet, and it's everywhere, which used to cause us terrible problems. We used to, you'd publish a book and then they say, oh no, this is by a celebrity and we haven't actually signed the contract yet, so can we get it taken down? And it's like, well, I could probably get it removed from Amazon, but if I remove it from Amazon, they're going to insist that we remove it from Waterstones and WH Smith's, and then you find there's some Burp and Scroggitt's books in Belgium or something that is still showing the book, and they didn't understand the W in World Wide Web. First one is world. It goes everywhere. It's available everywhere. So, and movie companies do this really well. Music companies, they hold stuff back, but publishing is just like, we gleefully just spaff it all over the internet. And who had to mop it up? I did. That was my job. Yeah, what joy.
But not anymore. Full-time writer.
Yeah.
This is the way.
This is the way. Yes.
We could get stuck on the Mandalorian, so let's not. We're both fans. We both love it. Okay. Well, before we carry on and talk about alpha readers and a little bit about the film as well, because I thought it'd be nice to talk about that. Let me just have a look at the comments. I've learned everything I know about doing live streams from the Bestseller Experiment podcast. So if this is crap, it's his fault. Let's have a look. There you go. You have a reader for the Crow folk.
Thank you very much, Trish. Hope you're enjoying it.
And Comrade Stay has been duly noted.
Solidarity, Sage. Solidarity.
When you look at the comments and realise you probably missed something. Some throwaway comment from 10 minutes ago.
I think that's the gloves. I think that's the heat holder gloves.
It will be nice. Okay, that's good. That's worth knowing, actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is Fleur in Australia, who gets up early for this live stream, which is lovely. Nice to see you. So
thank you, Fleur. And I think the audio book is probably the best way to enjoy it, to be honest, because we have Candida Gubbins reading it. And she's terrific. She's absolutely terrific. But they do something with the opening which blew me. They do, because I just did a paragraph just putting it in historical context. It goes June 1940, Dunkirk, blah blah. But they do it like June 1940. The British expeditionary forces have retreated from Dunkirk. I just love it. But I'm definitely going to try and audition to get that gig for audiobook 2. I didn't know they were doing that, so it was a lovely surprise. So
that's
thank
superb.
you very much. Thank you, Fleur.
And Gubbins, how superb! You couldn't pick a better second name.
I know, she's fantastic. I mean, Sage says there, Candida Gubbins is a proper Discworld name. I mean, she could be a character and she could be a villager. It's fantastic. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Brilliant. So let's we'll just have a little bit of adulation for you. Not too much. It's my live stream, but podcast has been a guiding light for me and kept me from chucking in the towel, says Sage, which is great. And you should absolutely not be chucking in the towel. So thank you, Mark, Marks, for stopping that happening.
Well, it's not just us though. I got to say, one of the greatest things about the podcast, and we're going to talk about alpha readers and beta readers and stuff like that, but just the community, the community that we have on the Patreon and the Facebook page and online and on the Academy. It's just a wonderful bunch of people, and we were very determined. We've seen other groups and they can get massive, and then they can get quite snipey and factions develop, but we haven't had any of that nonsense. Everyone is very, very positive, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful community, and for me, that's the best decision we ever made at the podcast. Was me and Mark were going to write this book in a year, but us saying to our listeners, beat us to it. That was the best thing, because then everyone's getting involved, everyone's having fun, and we're all sharing the ups and downs and the trials and tribulations and the triumphs and everything. So that is that's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, it is brilliant, and I do. In fact, I did it just yesterday. I recommend, if people are serious about writing, there's lots of places out there where you could spend an awful lot of time and sometimes an awful lot of money. But I say support the Bestseller Experiment podcast on Patreon, and you get to be in this Facebook group with it's still just under 200 members at the moment, and I'm sure that's going to grow. But I'm also sure I'm not the only one hoping it doesn't grow too much, because one of the other Facebook writing groups I belong to now has 47,000 members, which means, of course, it's divided into lots of different subgroups. But even I never go there because I'm just feel lost, and unless you're someone who's on it all the time, you're always going to feel that way. Whereas when I go to the Bestseller Experiment Facebook page, it's like being amongst friends, and it really does give you the warm fuzzies. It's extremely unusual on the internet at any time.
No, definitely.
Right, that's enough smoke blowing up your ass. Let's have a look in there.
By the way, look at this. Look what I got. Look at that. Here we go. Looking forward to that.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Now there might be a formatting issue with the chapters. I have to say, I'm going to have to fess up now. I just said it at the top of the show because I don't know how it crept in, but I have just checked it, and there is a formatting issue. But Sam and Doug pointed it out. I've just gone into it and corrected it. I'm going to re-upload it. So if you've got an early edition, all the words are in the right order, and it will tell you the story perfectly. But there might be a couple of off-putting chapter headings within other chapter headings, so I can only apologize for that. But of course, these are the ones that when you take them to the Antique Roadshow or your attendance to
collector's edition, I'll get you to sign it or something.
And I'll be very happy to sign it for anyone. But yes, it'll be nicely formatted by tomorrow, because as soon as we finish here, I'll make sure it gets re-uploaded. Let's just make sure we got any questions. The most important question of all: did I miss Albie? Okay, not yet. Don't worry. Right. So let's just talk a little bit about alpha readers. Now, this is something I think people probably understand this in different ways, because it's, for me, certainly, I don't think I ever came across the expression. It was a bit like when I was first in a band. I was 18 years old, and my dad lent me the money to buy 2 synthesizers. I had on a standard DX7 and a Juno 106, which should now be worth a bloody fortune. And I had 2 PV speakers and an amp, and I learned he showed me how to plug it all in, and I learned all this stuff from scratch. But I didn't have a clue. And I, being a typical 18-year-old bloke, I wouldn't ask. So when people were setting up the mixer, I look back now and I think, just ask, what does that do? What's EQ? What's the difference between foldback and feedback, which is actually quite important to know. Tell me some of these things, please, because you know the stuff and I don't. Just teach me. And I feel like it's like anything else, writing's got its own jargon, and alpha readers and beta readers was one that luckily now we have search engines. We can find this stuff out without having to embarrass ourselves. Although you usually find that people are very pleased to tell you if you ask.
Yeah, I think also people will have their own definitions too. They'll have their own interpretation of what it means. I mean, publishing and indie and trad, they all have their own language. But, even things such as defining what an editor, because it's something we get asked a lot on the podcast in the Academy. So what's the difference between a development editor and it's like publishing doesn't use the term development editor at all. It's editor. You get an editor. Whereas in indie, it's like, I've got a development editor. So you're talking about an editor, So it's there's their own little bits of jargon that even they can't agree on. But and
an editor is quite a powerful figure in publishing. This is as important as your agent in a way. An editor can be the one who champions the book and gets it, makes it a success or doesn't. Whereas it's the power dynamic is very different in self-publishing.
Well, in publishing, the editor doesn't just edit your book. They go to the art meeting, they go to the marketing meeting, they go to the publicity meeting. They have to be your champion in the meeting. And, if you have a great relationship with them and they love the book, that's all wonderful. If it's gone a bit sour or you've been passed over to another editor, it can be the worst thing ever. But it's all the editors I know are really, really passionate about, their authors. They just have a lot on, they're all overworked. But they do so much more than just edit the book.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. It's really interesting. Whereas the indie authors, and we all do it slightly differently. And my process has changed over the years. I'm sure yours has too. But I think, I'll just very briefly, my process as it stands at the moment would be I write the first draft. I write for me. I'm my ideal reader. I've got to be excited about it and want to read it. And then I'll leave it, not for the 6 weeks that Stephen King says you should, because I can't afford it. So, after a weekend, I'll come back to it. But I'm pretty good at switching my critical head on, and the creative child gets locked in the cupboard, and I'm reading it through, and I will literally read stuff that I've written not that long ago and go, oh no, come on, no. And I'll do my second draft. No one sees the first one. The second draft, once I've finished getting rid of the worst of my excesses, then goes to Mark Stay, because when I talk about having an alpha reader, at the moment I have an alpha reader. That's it. Because I actually, at this stage, I don't want more than one voice. I just want someone, because I know where I think might be an issue here, might be an issue there. I think this works really well, but let me see if I agree. And I've got. I said I've finished blowing smoke up your ass, but here's a bit more. I absolutely trust your judgment about pace and story and character. So when I get notes back from you, if there are places, it'll be when it chimes with what I already think. And I'll be, because I'm reading it as a reader and thinking, is that going on a bit too long here? And sure enough, you'll identify that. And so then that third draft gets done. Then that goes to the beta readers. And for me, that means Google Docs and Robin and Dressing Gown Woman, maybe one more. And they get to have a bash at it, and Pro Writing Aid as well gets involved, either before or after that, depending on how clean I think the manuscript is. So, Mr. Stay, what's your process with alpha readers?
Well, I was always very suspect of the idea. Again, this is one of the way the podcast has changed me, because I had always been focused on the traditional world. So it's like you write it and then you send it off to an agent and then a publisher. And this whole idea of giving it to some random ding dong, to read it before it gets published. I was like, why would I do that? But of course, once it does get published, that's what happens anyway. And then the random ding dong can leave a 1-star review on Goodreads objecting, and they will, objecting to waffling on for too long. So this idea of beta readers and alpha readers and having a team and putting yourself out there as a reader yourself. Because again, the thing is, I'm thinking I'm busy. I haven't got time to read other people's stuff, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I get as much. I love reading other people's stuff. Your stuff is great. I'm sitting there gleefully enjoying it, lapping it all up. And also because I do editorial stuff as well, where it's like people's first draft or second draft. I really enjoy that process because I'm always learning from them, from, their triumphs and their mistakes and things that can be improved. And it's just that thing of keeping yourself in the game. But my method at the moment is, yes, I will have a handful of I've never used the term alpha reader, but it's interesting because I do. One of the things I learned from screenwriting is try not to give it to the same person twice, because they bring all this baggage with them when they reread it the second time. And we had that when we did Robot Overlords. We had a guy at the BFI who was terrific. He was absolutely brilliant. He really helped us develop the script. He was really good, but he's obviously developing a million scripts at once. And we turn in a new draft and he would say, yeah, of course, there's that scene where that happens with that. And we go, no, we cut that like 3 drafts ago. But he's remembering it and then putting an impression of it onto what he's reading this time. And it's muddying the waters. So I like to give it to one person once and then move on to the next person and then move on to the next person. So Crowfolk went through 3 or 4 different people, maybe 5, because I did give it to Lorna Cook because she'd written a book about the Second World War, and I know she had some really good insight into kind of historical stuff and would help me if there was anything that wasn't making sense. So yeah, I have a little, well, not a Rolodex, no one has those anymore, but a short list of folks who get to see my dirty laundry and whose opinions I value. And again, look for the common bumps. It's not the be all and end all. You don't have to agree with everything. You just have to, be open to the idea that something isn't working, and solutions will be offered, but you don't have to take those solutions. You can step back and go, actually, I think the problem is in that first chapter or whatever. So yeah, I've really embraced it. I haven't gone from a complete skeptic, and it's saved my butt countless times, stopped me doing really stupid, silly things and making terrible mistakes, which is why story 3 in this bunch of short stories, story 3 was just a complete non-starter because of some feedback that I got. And I thought, okay, yes, that's very, very wise. So I'm going to step away from that and completely rethink it. So yeah, I'm all for it. And it was doing Back to Reality. When we first published that, we put that up on a Google Doc and said to our listeners, do you want to help us out? And we had dozens of people reading it and leaving comments and making comments, and it was incredibly useful. And I really embraced it after that.
It's a difficult balance, isn't it, between you don't want to write by committee. It's that I think I've told a story before about what's the Bunny Boiler film? Fatal Attraction.
Oh yeah, the ending of that. Yeah.
So originally, it's much more Madame Butterfly, which is what it's based on. And I would say, as a writer, I prefer the original ending, but it got shown famously to a screening room somewhere, to an audience that was then expected to feedback, and the feedback they did, and they wanted a more schlocky ending, and they wanted the satisfaction, which means they totally missed the point of the film, of this fragile, damaged woman losing the plot completely, of course. But they're all on Michael Douglas's side. They just want her punished, and they want to see it. They don't want it to happen off screen. They don't want her to do it herself. They want the alpha male to strike and stand up for family values. A bit late, but there you go. And sure enough, it got changed. So that's the bad side of it, but I think you have to.
Well, you say it's the bad side, but it was a smash hit. Now,
even as I said those words, I thought, however, he's I can't, who directed that?
Adrian Lyne.
That's right. So I'm sure
I think had only done hadn't he done Flashdance? But he came from pop videos and commercials, didn't he? A lot like Ridley Scott.
Right.
So it looked, terrific and very glossy and slick and everything. But it's
So he probably sat in his mansion in St. Lucia and thought, "Oh, I should have stood my ground." Another yeah. As well as there's always that tension, especially if you want to write commercial fiction, between thinking I've got this great idea, and I trust my instincts, but it's different. It's something a bit different, and wanting to have enough that's familiar and it's a balance, isn't it?
And where you see that a lot in publishing is with cover art. Now, usually contractually, the author doesn't have any real say in the cover art, but if they want, they can kick up a stink. And I have seen it happen where the author has dug their heels in and said, no, this isn't. The art department have come up with a commercial cover for that genre that's absolutely right for the market. But the author's gone, no, you've made it look like chick lit, and actually my book is serious literature or whatever. And then they put the serious literature cover on, and it sells serious literature figures, not commercial chick lit figures, for want of a better term. So sometimes it's worth thinking, okay, let's leave the marketing to the experts, who know best, perhaps. I mean, it's interesting. I've been pretty lucky with covers. I mean, Robot Overlords was essentially an image from the film. End of Magic, I was because it was unbound. They sent a really long questionnaire that you fill in and say, okay, so what are the important colors? Blue was an important color. What are the characters? What they're carrying? That sort of thing. And I was delighted with the cover they came up. Although I think it's a very UK cover, because it uses icons, and shapes and, contrasting colors. Whereas in the States, fantasy is almost photorealistic or painting like images of someone with a sword or whatever. Yeah,
if you look at Phil Quaintrell's new cover, he had all of his series redone.
Exactly. Yeah. I think if I had the patience, if I was to do any more of those books, I think I would probably, because I'll probably get the rights back from Unbound in about 3 years' time, and then I might think about doing more of them. And
good, because we want to know what happens next.
And then I think I would completely redo I love the End of Magic cover, but it's a UK cover. And then with the Crowfolk, I was completely in the dark. I had no input whatsoever. And you do have, sleepless nights where you think, oh, God, is it going to be any good? And then, the art was done by a guy called Harry Goldhawk. Absolutely. Here we go. Absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I agree. My first reaction, I wasn't absolutely sure. I just thought, I don't know about that. And I sort of came back to it probably within the hour and looked again. And I went, actually, it sort of stayed. I knew what it was. The image had stayed with me, and the framing here is lovely.
The wonderful thing is Waterstones doubled their order based on the artwork alone.
Wow.
But then they closed, so the order went back to where it was. So anyway, book 2, October. Let's all get vaccinated.
Absolutely. But before we go on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, see how slick I am at this. Let's go back to the comments again and just make sure there's lots of nice things about encouraging people to like the video, which is true. It's something I always forget to say, but it means the algorithm on YouTube then recommends it to more people, and they might get to see it, which would be lovely. So hello to those people, and thank you, algorithm. Now, I didn't know that. This is a conversation for another time, but we will talk about this because I'm a John Hughes fan. So Pretty in Pink fell to the test audience, so I didn't know that. And a comment on bad endings to films. Well, we could do a whole live stream on this, no problem. But Castaway,
No, we don't want to
Castaway,
give away the ending, just in case people haven't seen it. This is so really.
But there's a whole final act, and you're thinking, well, do we have to really sit and watch this? You know, he's done what he needed to do. You know.
Yeah, there's one bit in that I really like though, in that final act. Can I talk about it without giving away the ending? No, I can't. But there is a moment I really liked in that. And they ruined the endings of Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah, I think we have had the discussion before. I mean, I'm not
having that. I've recently rewatched all the extended versions back to back with my son.
You're a brave
man. I love the 15 endings. I really enjoy them because I feel shortchanged without them. So I love all that. I love it. I have to confess, I like The Hobbit. Couldn't get on with the rest of the books. I'm more of an Ursula K. Le Guin fantasy fan. Yes. So I'm all for the Lord of the Rings films, but the books, not so much. But
yeah, same. I've never read it. I've tried it a few times.
I'm in a minority. I know, but I couldn't get on with it. Yeah.
I'm reading Earthsea again in that lovely Gallant's edition at the moment. But this is maybe my 5th time, and it's almost a perfect book. Absolutely love it.
Have you read the short story that she did just before she died? It's
in there, isn't it? So I will get there. I haven't read it.
I was in floods. It's completely heartbreaking because she knew she was dying when she wrote it, and when you know that, I'm welling up now just thinking about it. It's incredible. Just wonderful. Highly recommended.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will get there. I picked up when I was in Seattle last year before this all went completely bonkers. January 2020, I went to a fantastic little secondhand bookshop on the just by the water and picked up a couple of Ursula Le Guin non-fiction ones, sort of interview type ones that I hadn't seen before about writing and stuff, which is just lovely. I'm never. It's a bit like that. What they say about rats: you're never more than 2 meters away from a rat in London or something. I'm never more than 2 meters away from an Ursula K. Le Guin book in my house. Probably no more than 5 feet away.
Very good.
But I need them. Okay, just one more. That's not a question, really. If I find a perfect notebook, says Robin, do I get early access to book 2? I assume this is book 2 of The Witches of Woodville. Mark's a man who loves his notebook. Oh, I'll tell you what. I don't know if you're like me. I mean, I've got a pile of moleskin stuff over there, and also a lovely Marvel one, which is a kind of embossed brown one with all the Marvel characters. But if you're there and you need to write and you haven't got a notebook on you, but you want to actually put a pen onto paper, then you will buy whatever happens to be in front of you.
Oh, dearie me.
Okay? And if you've only got a pencil, then you will use a pencil to write in it.
Do you not use your phone for stuff like that? I tend to dictate stuff and then email.
I do. Almost always do that. But on that particular occasion, it was in Minsmere, actually. The what's the name for that? It's a bird sanctuary, wildlife sanctuary in Suffolk. And we were there, and I just got one of those horrible twinges you get in your back when you get to a certain age, and couldn't walk properly. And I thought, well, it'll pass. It's very unusual for me to get it, but I couldn't then go around and walk around. And so I just sat on the bench and looked at these birds darting in and out of holes in the sand, but realized I had this idea for something. And so I had to then, but I wanted to actually physically write.
Right.
It wasn't something for talking to my phone.
I've become a recent. The notebook thing is I'm a recent convert. I'm just going to get them just off screen. One moment, caller.
I'll show you this is my usual notebook, which is just a plain old lined moleskin. Sometimes use the unlined ones. But also, recent discovery was my birthday present to myself last year was the fountain pen. And that's made a huge difference.
I'm cack-handed, so I can't write with ink pens like that, fountain pens, because I write like this and it just smudges everywhere. So yeah, I've got into the habit of having a different notebook for each project. So I've just retired this one. I got this at the Kubrick the Design Museum Kubrick exhibition. So that was basically Babes in the Wood, which is the second Woodville book. So everything is in there, plus the short stories. And that was the first time I started using a notebook properly, I think. And, whenever I got stuck, okay, what happens next? Stuff like that, short story ideas, everything was just in there. And I've recently retired that one because it's full, but I still refer back to it. So everything's in there. This one, which I picked up on a day trip to the White Cliffs of Dover at the National Trust gift shop, has a Spitfire on and everything. That's the next book, and as you can see, I've not used that much yet, so not much into that one, but lots to fill up. This is one for this is another Kubrick one because they had a sale online during lockdown, so I went and got all of their.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's lovely.
So this is for a horror TV thing I'm working on at the moment, so that's lots of fun. And then this is just like this was a Christmas gift from my kids who know me well. And so this is just general projects. So I've got about, I write down the start dates as well. So this started 28th of Jan. So it gives me an idea of how long I've been. So this is just various ideas as they come to me. So I'm enjoying it. It's how I justified my notebook addiction, which is what it is. Let's be frank.
I think it's really worth doing because it's the same way as if you read a book that you intend to make notes in. When you want to go back and look at those notes, you remember the physical location roughly in the book and which side of the page it was on. There's something about the physical notebook that's really nice for that. So mine are so disorganized. It probably says a lot about my brain, but I'm looking at a pile like this of notebooks. Most of them are half full, and they'll jump from one book to another in a completely different series halfway through, and they're all over the place. This one actually is just one massive epic fantasy idea, but it's still not loads in there. But I mean, who knows if it'll ever get written? But at the moment it's just the world and the magic system and a very interesting idea that ties nicely into the last 5 years we've had in the world without going too much into it. So let's segue again into the final section of the live stream, when we're going to talk about films, because for those out there who don't know, Mark wrote a screenplay for a film called Robot Overlords, which was made into a film with Gillian Anderson and Sir Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley, yes.
Sir Ben Kingsley, who I used when I was growing up, I thought of as Gandhi. And now whenever I see him, I either think of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, which is one of my all-time favorite scenes in any film ever. Or I just think, no. From Sexy Beast.
And all of those no's were scripted. All of those, he is a stickler, an absolute stickler for getting the words right. And I remember it was 2 days before we were starting shooting, and we made changes to about 7 or 8 of his lines, but he'd already learned them. So one of the producers said to me, Mark, can you write down the new line, but also write down what the previous line was? Because he's basically got to replace it in his mind. It's all completely memorized. And the wonderful thing about Sir Ben is he completely commits to the project. This is our silly little film about robots taking over the world, but he was totally into it. And he was talking about it in mythological terms, which is something John and I talked about at the beginning, the hero's journey and this boy going on a quest. And, the robots are like dragons and beasts. And he totally got that. But yeah, he is switched on completely. When you hire Ben Kingsley, you get all of Ben Kingsley. He's not
he doesn't phone it in, does he?
No way does he. He's really intense. He's really into it, but a lovely guy as well. Really, I got to I met him a couple of times. One was at the Apple store in Regent Street. They did an event with Chris Hewitt from Empire magazine, who did a Q&A with him about the film. And just before we were backstage, and they showed the trailer, and the Spitfire flies across, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Put in the Spitfire," and he said, "That was a stroke of genius." And I'm like, he got me. So that was a fun moment. I'm going to be dining on that for a while. Yeah. But yeah, love him.
That's great. And you've done what you've done in the last year is proved. And I don't know if you're anything like me, with this imposter syndrome that all of us, to a greater or lesser extent, suffer from. Even with a film with Gillian Anderson and Seren Kingsley and giant robots and a Spitfire, I would be thinking to myself, yeah, one-hit wonder though. You know, just the one film. You know, it's just a stroke of luck. I was just in the right place at the right time.
I really was.
But no, I don't believe that at all. And you've proven it, because, and I still can't believe the speed that this has happened, because if there's one thing, if you've ever been involved in TV or film, even just in the absolute periphery, that we all know, is that you don't come up with an idea for a film and then write it down, have a couple of telephone conversations, write a script, send it to a producer, then get it made during a pandemic, and during a lockdown, and then get Warner Brothers come on board to distribute it throughout the world. So could you just
well, it wasn't quite that easy. It wasn't quite that easy, but yeah, sad to say, COVID did sort of help us. But we'd John Wright and I, who directed Robot Overlords, we wanted to do a monster movie. He directed a brilliant film called Grabbers a few years ago, which is Irish monster movie about these tentacle monsters that invade this little island, and they figure out they're allergic to alcohol. So everyone goes into the pub, has a lock-in, stays drunk, because if they chew you up, they spit you out again. It's a brilliant concept. Kevin Lehane's the writer on that. He's absolutely fantastic, and it's a really good fun film. And the producer of that, guy called Piers Tempest, he produced Robot Overlords, and he was like, I'd love to make another monster movie. So we started on monster movie ideas, and we came up with this film, The Little People, which we wrote pretty quickly, actually, in about 8-9 months for a screenplay, is, you know, going over it again and again and again. And John was working on the TV show Brassic. So essentially, we talk about the story, then I go away and write it, do a draft, give it to him, then we'd have a story meeting. So I get sole writing credit this time, but we both have story credit. But John's great. He's very collaborative like that. And we finished it in March last year, just as lockdown was happening. And, we figured, well, like a lot of people, they thought, it might be over by Easter, might be over by the summer, who knows. So we sent it to Piers, kind of out of courtesy, because it is a monster movie, but it's a lot more bloody than Grabbers was, and a bit more intense in places as well. And we thought he'll say thanks, but no thanks. We gave it to him in the morning. He optioned it by lunchtime, which is just
crazy. I love it.
Absolutely crazy. And then over the next few weeks, money started coming in, because Piers is a doer. He's one of these producers who really does get things made. And and we shot it September, October, in the sort of lockdown sandwich. And amazing, absolutely amazing cast. We've got so they've all been announced, so I can talk about it now. So we've got Hannah John Kamen, Neve Cusack, Douglas Booth, Jamie Lee O'Donnell, Cole Meany, which, being a Star Trek fan, was huge. Christian Nairn, Chris Wally. So Chris Wally and Jamie Lee O'Donnell. We've got a Derry Girl and a young offender. And as you can probably imagine from the cast, it's set in Ireland as well. We couldn't shoot it in Ireland, so we went to Bovingdon Air Base in the heart of England, and what they've done is extraordinary. They basically built this enormous structure the size of the 007 stage, and built a house inside it. So it's this giant gazebo where, when you go in there, you'd hear birds flying about. They've built the house in there, and the garden and the drive, and it's just astonishing. And I've seen a couple of cuts of the film. The film is locked. Warner Brothers really like it. We're just working on the visual effects, but the title is probably going to change. We were talking earlier about, title changes and feedback and marketing and stuff like that, because the Warner Brothers marketing department love the film, but the title of The Little People doesn't travel. It's one of those where I think, in the UK and Ireland, we know what it is, and in certain parts of America, but beyond that, it doesn't have the right connotation. They said it sounds like a small drama. It sounds like something a bit dry. So they wanted to give it a horror title. So there is a new title coming. I know what it is, but I can't tell anyone yet. But there will be an announcement soon.
But we can all guess, right?
You can try. You can try.
I mean, I think you managed to do that lovely thing, which is hard to do, describing your own work as saying it's so and so meets so and so, and so this Little People is Straw Dogs meets Gremlins. So Straw Gremlins.
Oh, that's good.
Gremlin Dogs.
Gremlin Dogs. These are. I wish you were around a few weeks ago when we were trying to think of titles. Let me write these down.
I'm always available. My rates are reasonable. And look, there you go. You got at least one viewer.
Oh, thank you, Fleur.
That's one ticket sold.
The other thing I need to correct you on is Warner Brothers in the UK. So I think they're getting ready for the Cannes Film Festival, so they'll be selling rights at Cannes. So that might be when you might see a teaser trailer or something like that. But it's the other thing is we don't know when it's going to be released. So they're committed to doing a theatrical release, but it might not be till early next year. It might not be till a year from now, because of course when cinemas do open, you've got nearly 2 years of backlog. And, you've got Bond movies, Marvel movies, DC movies, Fast and Furious movies, and they're just going to hoover up the box office. So it's going to be there's a strategy. And you see this in publishing as well. I know that we used to have big meetings where we get big spreadsheets and look and say, right, well, we can't put Ian Rankin out on the same week as Martina Cole because it's essentially, very similar readership. We don't want to split that. So, okay, how about we put Ian Rankin a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, or let's let everyone avoids Lee Child like the plague. It's just you don't want to release the week after Lee Child, because everyone's still buying Lee Child. But there's it'll be interesting to see when it does come out and how. But it will benefit from being on the big screen. I mean, having gone because I went to the Warner screening room in London and saw a preview of it, and we're all socially distanced. There's only like 5 of us in the room, but just seeing it in the dark on a big screen, you watch it. You're not sitting there like I do checking IMDb. I saw them in a film. What was that film? Oh yeah, they're in that film with that thing and that person. And then you look up, and you've missed something important. It's you're totally focused on the movie. So I hope so. I hope we get proper release. Good night, Sage. Sage is gone.
Oh, Sage is gone. Oh, okay. Night, Sage. Robin's gone too. So that's a night, Robin. And Albie hasn't even been in for his snacks yet. Well, Mark, I'll tell you what. You can witness the weekly ritual. Hang on, Albie. Wait for it, Albie. It's your big moment, mate.
Hey.
There we go. All right. Yeah, he's here. It's just because he loves me so much. It's nothing to do with anything else. He just adores me. Everything about me. He just loves to spend time with me. Yeah, don't you? You do. That's it. It's nothing to do with anything else. Right. Yeah, there's more over there. Okay, there you go. Up there. Right, AMSR. Go on. That's it. Good boy. People pay good money for this kind of thing. Try one of those. Right up to the mic.
I'll take this off.
There you go. There's 2 more. Okay, there you go. There's that one. Yeah, this. I realised quite early on that even if I was just sitting here talking crap for an hour, it didn't matter as long as the dog appears. Yeah. There you go. That's the last one.
Queeves figured this out as well. See, I'm allergic to anything with fur and 4 legs, so it's I could probably get one of the chickens in, but they're asleep. They'd be really confused, and no one wants a confused chicken.
Get yourself a lizard.
A lizard. Like a Bond villain.
Yeah, just have it perched on your shoulder. Right, helps. That's it. That's all. You've had everything. You just say goodnight, and I'll see you in a little while. We can go back to the fire now. Go on then. Okay. Yeah, he's a good boy.
Yeah.
Never had a dog before, so it's all quite 3.5 years. It's hard to remember what it was like without him.
Yeah, I bet it's. I think if I was going to have a cat or a dog, it would be a dog. I think there's something about dogs. They're a little bit dozy. They're very, very loyal. I think I'm probably a little bit more of a dog person. Doug Brady says, Mark, get an iguana.
or a chameleon. Then you can have that on your shoulder and we wouldn't know.
Well, no, this could be a chameleon right now.
Yeah. Well, I think we're back at the hour mark, aren't we? So I think an hour on YouTube is probably asking a lot of people, isn't it? I tend to, I don't know if I'm like a lot of other people, I look at YouTube videos and that sounds interesting. And I go, an hour, you forget it. Like, I want all the information I need and I want it in 3 minutes. So you end up with these.
I'm doing a YouTube series at the moment with a friend, Jeremy Mason, about marketing your book on YouTube.
Yes.
And he has discovered that the ideal length of a YouTube video is between 7 and 9 minutes. And of course, all of ours are an hour 10, an hour 12, and we always start by going tight 45, but you end up waffling on. But it can go on.
Yeah. Well, never mind. This has all been top quality content.
Gold.
Yeah, people will be talking about this for years to come. They'll be showing this in universities,
museums. Yeah, time capsule. Put it in a time capsule. Yeah,
I will almost immediately. Okay. Well, so thank you very much for coming on. It's a lot easier when it's a conversation, actually.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it because I dip in and out there. I tend to be asleep on a Friday evening, I'm afraid.
And if you're not by the time I start, then you soon will be.
Well, I do dip in. I think, how does he hold people for an hour? It's a hell of an achievement. And Claire does this. My wife does this with her YouTube videos. She'll just talk to camera and look at the camera and start talking and know what she wants to say. And I've tried some episodes of the podcast on my own, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard. The whole conversation thing works so well because you don't have to carry the whole thing. So whenever you want me back, I'll be there.
Well, you'll regret that. Well, perhaps what we'll do, we'll let you have a few weeks off again. You've got plenty on your plate with the podcast and the film coming out and the next books to write and all the rest of it, and the Bestseller Academy to run. But yes, perhaps we could pick a subject between us to talk about, or if anyone's got an idea of something they'd like us to discuss, because there are similarities between the ways we work, but there are also differences, and it'd be good to maybe have a chat through some of these things.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm happy to do it.
Anytime.
Well, and obviously, likewise with the Bestseller Experiment, I know you're just dying to ask me back on. So
we will definitely. Yeah.
So right. Well, I hope both of you enjoyed this in the audience. This was, as my dad says, he's a jazz musician, and I going back a few years, I'd say. So how's the work? Jazz musician traditionally not being blessed with many offers, and he say, the gig is flooding in. And here's, if you want an endorsement for how well this went, here's Dressing Gown Woman, otherwise known as my wife. And I think we all concur.
The long-suffering Mrs. Sainsbury. Yes,
that's the one. Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon anyway, because you need to tell me everything that's wrong with my book.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Great. Cheers, Mark. And thanks everyone else. I won't do a wrap up afterwards. I should just end the broadcast. In fact, you can stay where you are, and then I can tell you what I really thought of your stuff.
Okay, lovely.
Excellent. So bye to everyone else, and see you next time, Friday, 8 o'clock next week.